Hi everybody, this is Noelle from Petitti Garden Centers, and we are doing a plant spotlight on Kalanchoe or Kalanchoe, however you'd like to say it. So Kalanchoe is kind of a cool family. They are definitely a succulent family. They are from Madagascar and sort of tropical Africa. So really interesting succulent plants. Some of them, I should say all of them bloom, but you will recognize these as probably the most prominent bloomers of the family. These are Kalanchoe or Kalanchoe blossfeldiana. And these guys are great. You'll see them anywhere. You'll see them in garden centers. You'll see them year round. You'll see them at florist shops. And it's because they're so easy to grow. First of all, we always start with the plant spotlight as what requirements do you need? So starting out with light. Indoors, as a houseplant, they grow in bright indirect light to part shade. So our part shade sun requirement is always 4 to 6 hours of sunlight. You'll find that they can take eastern, western, southern window pretty well. I'd still probably try to move them back off of that window about 5 foot back. But needless to say, because they're a succulent, they can take some of that bright direct lighting on their leaves and on their foliage. Just remember, whenever you have a flowering succulent, of course, the more heat, the more light, you are going to make that plant flower quicker. So again, if you can try to keep them at average household temperatures, anywhere between 60 degrees all the way up to about 85 degrees, they'll do well. But again, the more heat, the faster they're going to bloom out for you. Typically in normal household conditions, these plants can bloom usually 2 to 3 months because they develop so many buds, their bud set's so heavy, and then the flowers will open from there. The flowers are a 4-petaled flower, so you'll see those 4 petals on the classic Kalanchoe here. And then they'll fill out, but they're so heavily budded that once each one of those buds opens, again, you have that longevity of flowering, no problem whatsoever. Another thing that we love about the Kalanchoes is that, again, the watering maintenance is not as great as some of the other flowering houseplants that we grow indoors. Again, because they're succulents, you would water them thoroughly, so make sure that you're thoroughly saturating the soil substrate and then letting it drain and then doing that one more time, repeating. That's always what we do when we're thoroughly watering a plant. So go ahead and do that again, moisten the substrate, let that water drain away, and then go ahead and put it back in its bright spot. And that will do very nicely. And then you wait for that soil, like most succulents, to kind of dry and constrict and move away from the edge of the pot. And once that happens and you see the soil constrict like that, that's your indicator that it's time to water them again. Don't get me wrong, they can take a little bit more water than most succulents, but I think for the most part, you'll be really, really successful if you do that watering where you thoroughly water and then wait for that soil to kind of constrict. And they'll love that. They'll love those types of conditions. Another thing that you need to know about the Kalanchoes, especially these flowering types, is that they are actually a late winter, early spring bloomer. That's their natural bloom cycle. So there's a little bit of timing here that we can talk about with the flowering, and you'd kind of treat them like a poinsettia, where when we bring the poinsettias in, usually kind of mid-fall, I would say, we bring them indoors and we kind of treat them to a light treatment where we do put them out from like 8 to 5 during the day, so they get about 10 hours of light, and then we cover them or put them in a dark closet for the rest of the day for 14 hours. So it's that 10 hour to 14 hour, 10 hours of light, 14 hours of darkness, and do that exposure for them every day for about 6 weeks. Again, keeping them on the drier side of watering now that we've moved them indoors. And they do great, and they end up blooming and doing really well. And again, during that late winter, early bloom cycle. So right now they're doing wonderfully. Kalanchoes also grow in your average potting mix to cactus soil. So if you want to mix the two, that's fine. Just make sure that your soil is well drained and aerated. So again, the average potting mix is fine, no worries there. Just make sure, again, that you have planted it in pots that have plenty of drainage, because we want that water to make sure that it runs through the pot. The other thing that we need to do with Kalanchoe is deadhead. And so simply, that's really, really easy to do. You can take your fingers, or you can take some clean scissors, small scissors, and just as the flowers expire, go ahead and just pinch back to a main branch. So it could be a small flower that you're just taking off the top, or you can actually take the whole flowering head as it expires and go back to the next set of leaves. So we'll do that here, and I've actually taken off 3 different stems and left the next set of leaves there. So very, very easy to do. One other thing that I could tell you is that Kalanchoe, they will start to produce some roots out their stems, and those are just air roots, and they can be planted as well. Cut, you can plant that segment again in soil next to your Kalanchoe if you want to, or in another pot, and you'll grow all new plants. Okay, there's a couple varieties here that I want to talk to you about. Oh, I forgot to mention fertilizer. So like most of our house plants, you're really just feeding these during growing season, so usually April to September, and you're just using a multi-purpose plant food. It could be Osmocote, it could be Miracle-Gro, whatever you prefer to use. Just follow the package instructions. That's all we ask, to make sure that you're following that labeling carefully for the houseplant care. And sometimes they're diluted half strength, sometimes not, so it just kind of depends, but always follow the label on that fertilizer. With these flowering types, again, the most common is going to be this one. This is your Kalanchoe, blossfeldiana. Actually, this is a triple color variety, and we love this. The white, the red, and the pink. Again, with these, you're seeing intermittent blooms and also buds. And again, the blooms will last a very long time if you keep them in those cooler conditions, again, closer to that 60, 65 degree mark. And they do like that. We talked about this with orchids too. They do like it when you can get warmer during the day, maybe up to 70, 75 degrees. And then if you drop that 7 to 10 degrees at night, that's always really good too. So think about that when you're growing these plants. So this is the classic Kalanchoe here, or Kalanchoe. And then there's so many different colors, yellows, pinks, obviously. This is kind of a newer color for us. It starts out with kind of a primrose yellow bud, and then as it gets a little bit more mature, it turns white and then also takes on a little bit of a blush tone. So that one's gorgeous as well. Nice big flowers. We like the Calandiva type too, and Calandiva are basically just a doubled flowering Kalanchoe that we see there. Petals here, oh gosh, there's probably about a dozen or more petals on each flower. So really showy, very pretty, kind of like small little rosebuds when these all come out and open. Since we were talking about that they are part of a succulent family, they're actually part of the Crassula family, which we call the jade plant. So they're part of that family, that larger genetic family. And so you'll see these types of Kalanchoe or Kalanchoe as well. This is a Tomentosa type. It is basically, Tomentosa is hairy. So they have fuzzy, really soft fuzzy leaves. This is the Panda type Kalanchoe that you'll see out there. There's a couple different colors. This is obviously silver with a little bit of rust brown on the tips. You'll see this one as well, that darker brown Panda Kalanchoe too. So, and there's some that are really silvery, all white as well. So a couple different varieties there with the Tomentosa type. And then this is Mother of Thousands. If you've ever heard of that before, it's also called a Hoften or Horticulturist Kalanchoe or Calanchoe, and this one's teeny right now. It's very immature. It sort of has darkish brown speckles on the leaves, and we'll get a close-up of it so you can see it, and you'll see all the little plants that are coming up at the base of that. And that's the thing about Mother of Thousands, is that it will start to really fill out and produce a lot of different growth. Also on its foliage, it will start to produce flowers and then also seeds too that will drop and produce more. Now, these are not hardy succulents. We can't grow them outside in Northeast Ohio over the winter time. Of course, you could take them outside and grow them during our growing season. That's not a problem. Just remember that they need that partial shade aspect, so that 4 to 6 hours of sunlight, and again, watch for the watering, especially when you take them outdoors. I think for the most part we've covered all the Kalanchoes. Again, bright lighting, bright indirect lighting to part shade. Make sure that when you're watering them, you thoroughly moisten that substrate 2 times, and then go ahead and let that soil constrict before you end up watering again, because they cannot tolerate wet feet, sitting in water, standing water, anything like that. Humidity, you really don't have to worry about it again, because it's a succulent. If they are in a humid area, that's okay, don't get me wrong, but they can take much drier air and drier conditions as well. So enjoy.